Okay, guys, let's start. Let me share my screen. So, before jumping into Node.js, guys, do you guys can you guys tell me what do you mean by Node.js? You must have heard of it, right? Or some of you would have worked on it. So, what do you think, Narendran, Pooja, Rajiv? Guys, am I audible?
Yes.
So, guys, anything on Node.js?
It's a file form which give us to run the JavaScript on the server side.
So, okay, it's what?
It's a tool which give us opportunity to run the JavaScript on the server side.
Okay. Okay, Narendran is saying it's new for me. Okay, Pooja, what about you?
So Sahil, I haven't also worked on Node.js before, but the basic idea I have is same, like that it gives an environment where we can run JavaScript on our, like instead of browser, into our machines as a or on any server.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so I think guys that is like partially correct. So a lot of people think that Node.js is a programming language or something like that, or maybe it gives the environment, but actually it is the environment, right? So what else is an environment? So when we have JavaScript, we know that we have JavaScript engine, right? So JavaScript gets executed in some places. So we have a browser, right? So browser is the environment. Then we have Node.js. So Node.js in the environment. Then we have mobile OS. That is another environment, right? So these are environments where you can run JavaScript for different purposes, and there are many more environments. When you run it on the browser, you can use it to manipulate the HTML, right? When you use it on the Node.js, you write the server side code, okay? And when you have in the mobile OS or something like that, then it will be uh, for mobile applications, right? So these are the environments. So originally we know that okay, yeah, it was built by Netscape browser. That was the first browser, right? And we used to only put it inside browsers, right? So JavaScript is just a language. It does not know about DOM APIs, fetch, timers. It is just the part of browser. Similarly, file system, database, network sockets, operating system is a part of Node.js. It's not a part of JavaScript. So this is the runtime environment. This is also environment, right? So the runtime provides the environment. So this means is JavaScript can access the server side of things like file system, sockets, databases, all those things because the Node.js provided, right? So Node.js is basically JavaScript runtime, and it's built on top of V8 engine only. That is being powered in the browser in Chrome specifically, but there are different engines that we have seen in the starting classes, right? But on the whole, it's a runtime that is built on V8 combined with C++ bindings combined with a libuv library. And this libuv library contains some part of, you can say, event loop plus some thread pool, right? This you will get in the Node.js source code. So you can go through that. We have already, right? So you can search for Node.js source code, and here you'll know that it's built on top of these things, right? CPP, then there should be this dependency section. You can see V8, right? So it's built on V8, it's built on, these are some dependencies that it requires, right? NPM and everything. And if you go to library section, so where is this libuv? Yeah, I think they have changed the name to UV, right? So there they have written this libuv code, right? So all of this combines and then creates up an environment where the JavaScript can run. Okay. So I hope it makes sense, guys. If you go to V8, V8 engine is written in C++, right? So we don't need to go into that much detail, but I'm just giving an idea about how things are there. Okay. So all of this combined is what is a runtime, that is Node.js, and where we can write JavaScript to access a lot of different things like file system, uh, network access, child processes, events, streams, buffers. Here also you will get some timers and async input output modules, all these things, right? So I think that also makes sense because, guys, tell me one thing, like JavaScript is a high level language or low level language?
Low level language.
No, low level language is like C++, right? C++, C, Java, these are low level language, right? Because what I'm saying is JavaScript directly does not have access to these features, right? You cannot just use JavaScript to go into the computer internal features. That is why they are using C++. Okay. So it's a high level language. So with just one line of code, we are accessing file system. But under the hood, a lot of things are happening, right? So if you look at the architecture high level, it will be that we are writing some, let's say, we are writing some JavaScript code, right? So who will execute that? First, we have a V8 engine, right? It's written in C++. So that will execute the JS. Then it will go to Node.js and its equivalent C++ bindings. Right? Let's say you want to go to file system, so it directly cannot do that. And that is the reason why C++ is included, guys. And through the libuv library, it accesses the event loop plus thread pool, and finally it it gets access to the computer's internal features, and that internal is, you can say, OS, kernel, right? Input output, network card, file system, all these things. Is it making sense, guys, everyone? So when you are writing JavaScript code, with just one line of code, it will do its job, but behind the scenes, a lot of things are happening. So those of the things are abstracted out for us, out from us, right? Is it making sense a little bit, guys, that JavaScript alone cannot get all those things? It needs help, right? It needs help from the C++ to access the computer internal features. Up till this part is clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so couple of things, guys, that what Node.js is. So Node.js is basically single-threaded, but a lot of people think that the Node.js is single-threaded. So Node.js alone is not single-threaded. That's why I have been writing event loop plus thread pool. It is single-threaded in its JavaScript layer. When you are using JavaScript, right? But under the hood, it's multi-threaded, and it uses this non-blocking input output, right? That we already know because we have already studied event loop in JavaScript, right? And that is responsible for this non-blocking input output. And that's why we say that it is designed for high concurrency, not parallel, instead of raw CPU intensive task, you can say. Okay.
Sir, what is the meaning of the last line?
Last slide, basically, see, concurrent required means you have event loop, right? You know event loop that we saw in JavaScript
Yes, yes.
browser part, right?
Yes, yes.
It will take the async code, it will keep on executing due to the callbacks and promises queue, and that is non-blocking, right?
Yes.
But Java and other languages are multi-threaded. That means you can do multiple tasks at a time. So that's why they are used for these CPU intensive tasks. But Node.js is used for concurrent tasks. So concurrency means you can throw any number of requests and it will do one by one. It will execute them fast, right? So it is non-blocking, concurrent, but it is not parallel. Okay. So one important thing is there is a concept called worker threads that you can use. So for CPU intensive tasks, you can use worker threads. These are extra threads that will help you run the task parallelly, right? And basically, if I tell you the example, so concurrent task or some type of task would be, let's say, uh, basically, why do we use it, right? Basically, use it for network servers, server requests, APIs, right? Because there you can put 1000 requests, it will execute all of them, right? Real time applications, but it will struggle for, let's say, if you want to do some sort of image processing, right? Or can say some kind of loops or using machine learning or some kind of encryption, heavy work. So for that, it struggles, right? And that's why you can use worker threads for those cases. Okay. Any questions here? So you guys, excuse me. Yeah, not well from couple of days here. Okay, so now let's try to implement that, guys, right? So how do we do that? So everyone has Node.js installed, right? So what we can do is you can just create a folder. Inside that, you can just say index.js and you can say console.log. And how to execute, guys? So we have a runtime environment here that is Node. So you can see it's installed on my system and I have to go to Node.js and I can say Node and I can say Node index.js and you see what is the issue. Okay, I started with Node REPL, right? So we can just say Node index.js and it executes the code. Now, if you want to write basics of Node, you can also go to just you can just say Node. It will start the Node REPL, and you can also write your Node.js here. But it's not used for production applications, right? So you need to do that in files. Okay. So let's take a small example of how we can work with the file system, and then I'll tell you how it works behind the scenes just to give you an idea. Then we'll do some practice here, okay? So let's say we want to work with file system, right? So there are concept of modules. You can create your own module just like we were doing in JavaScript, like importing and exporting. But there are some inbuilt modules as well. Uh, what is, yeah. So what we can do here is we can say earlier we used to import using require. So we can say require, we want the file system module, right? And we can put them in a variable. Now it will give you a couple of things. You can console and you can check it out. You can see it gives us couple of things, and it gives us all these methods, functions out of the box to work with the file system, right? If you want to write to file, if you want to read from file, whatever. So let's create a file. Let's say data.txt, and we can say this is a dummy file, and we can go here. We can say we want to read, so we can say fs dot read file. What file we want to read? We want to read data.txt. Now it will take couple of arguments, guys, right? One argument would be the character encoding if you want to see the output. So you can say UTF-8, and then we have a callback. So this is very important pattern in Node.js, guys, because most of the times to work with the concurrency mode or non-blocking input output, we will have to use event loop, right? And you know that event loop can either be used by promises or callbacks, and that's why these callbacks are used a lot. So you will get some sort of error and data. So you can do the error handling, but let's just say console.log data. So now you'll see that we got the data file and we are able to extract the file, right? But one thing I want to ask from you guys is, don't you feel, guys, this looks very simple? This is just one line of code, right? And the
Yes.
syntax will never change. You just have to provide the file name, the character encoding, and just the callback once you get the data, like what you want to do, what you want to process. So again, it looks very simple, but again, behind the scenes, we know that a lot of layers are working on this, right? Okay, so this is not reading the file directly, right? So basically, it's calling a JavaScript function that calls C++ code. So that is the idea. So let me walk you through the example. So we can say when you are using fs fs dot read file in Node.js, what all is happening, right? And this is very important, guys, to understand initially to create that mental model. Okay. So this invokes some kind of, you can say, behind the scenes. 8 layers are working approximately. What is the first layer? First layer is your JavaScript code. Okay, so we write this and I'll write it here. This is not reading the file directly, but it's calling a JavaScript function that calls the CSS, right? So always remember, Node does not read files using JavaScript. Then what is layer 2? If you see, what did we do, guys? We imported a file system, right? A module that was already built. So there is this wrapper, there is this file that is there. You can call it as nodes JavaScript wrapper or something. That is nothing but this file fs.js, right? So you can say that this file system module is implemented, right? So it's implemented, you can say, partially in JavaScript. And we, I think we saw here, right, the fs somewhere. Where was it? Right, fs.js. And this is how it's implemented. Here we should get read file. Getting this, guys? Read file. We should not go into the details, but we should understand, we should take some sort of things out of it, that it's a function that has these things, right? So we can say fs dot read file is nothing but a function that you can say return. I'm just writing some pseudo code, return some sort of binding, and these options are passed. What it means is JavaScript is then calling binding, and that binding is registered in nodes C++ core. Then we come to the layer 3. Right. So you can say that when node starts, it loads various C++ modules and exposes them to JavaScript. That's how JavaScript has those access, right? You can say via process dot binding, right? And it will point to maybe some node file.cc. Let's check if that's there or not. Yeah, crazy guys, right? This one line of code is doing all sorts of stuffs behind the scenes. And that is something that a lot of people fail to understand. So we are just doing this exercise for one particular thing, right? But this will happen for whatever JavaScript code that you write. So whenever you are in an interview, right, if you explain in this fashion, then they'll know that you know something in detail, right? You just don't know the syntax, you know something in detail. So that's why we are going to this exercise, right? So this contains C++ code, logic for actually what we want to do, for opening of files, for reading of files, for writing of files, right? Closing the files. So in short, the JavaScript function calls its corresponding C++ function, right? That would be some function in C++, and that would be basically read file. It would do something. We are not going into the depth of that, but finally it will call the libuv API. So it would be something like uv fs read, something like that. You don't need to go into implement details. So then we have this layer 4, that is our libuv library, right? So this is the core layer where it makes Node.js async, and this node uses libuv for a couple of things. You can say for file system, for networking, for timers, set timeout, all these things, for DNS, and for some sort of async CPU work, right? So I told you that Node.js on the JavaScript layer is single threaded. That means here it's single threaded, but internally it's multi-threaded, guys. So when you are calling this, right, when you are calling this, So node calls this, and libuv takes the request and puts it in thread pool. And there are multiple threads, usually 4 threads. And it marks, again, very important point, the callback that we were using, right? It marks callback to be executed later. And that is the last callback that was there in that line, right? So important insight here is that again, it is not handled by the OS layer. It is being handled by the libuv layer, right? Because OS level file is input output blocking, but libuv is using its own thread pools to make it look asynchronous to Node.js. Okay. And now we are to the point where layer 5 means that it is nothing but libuv thread pool. Okay. So you can say that the read request would enter one of the 4 threads, and inside the worker thread, the actual file is read with the blocking C system call. And this worker would be, if you guys want to get like make sense out of it, right? So it would be like thread 1. That is, let's say for our case, it is reading data.txt. Then thread 2, 3, 4. This would be, let's say, waiting for DNS. This would be compressing the file, so it feels like asynchronous, right? And it would be some site doing hashing password or anything, right? So within the worker thread, the actual file is called, and actual file is read, you can say, with a blocking C system call. And these are OS level system calls. Assume that it's calling some read with some parameters, right? So these are OS level system calls. So now we are inside level 6, and that is nothing but the operating system level or operating system kernel, the lowest entry point of the operating system. Okay, just a little bit more. And here at this point, guys, the OS handles the actual file access. That means it opens the file descriptor. Next, what? reads the bytes from the disk. The disk could be, we know that now it could be SSD or HDD, right? Then it copies the data into memory buffers. Then it returns the data to the libuv thread, because that is what has accessed the process, right? So kernel will use system calls like open, read, write, and then close. And these are blocking at OS level, guys. Finally, guys, finally the output is going where? If you see this, the output is getting returned to where? To the thread pool, to the worker thread. So at level 7, we have a thread, and that thread executes callback, and the callback sends the result back to the event loop, right? So worker thread pushes a completion event into libuv library. Again, the process is going back. Then event loops sees something like fs read complete, and then it schedules your JavaScript code, or you can say JavaScript callback. And then, guys, finally, the last layer, that callback that was written in the JavaScript layer, right? So, JavaScript callback runs, and finally, our node runs the callback. The callback, if you remember, had these things: null and file content, right? Or data. And it runs on the main JavaScript thread and not the worker thread. So the main JavaScript thread is call stack, that we already know. And that is how this whole line of code is getting executed, and you see the output on the screen. Now we are doing this exercise, guys, because I have seen a lot of people who knows Node.js code. They know the syntax, but they fail in interviews because they are not able to tell actually what is happening, right? So with this exercise, trust me, these kind of things, right, they are not available in a lot of Node.js courses also, right? Because this is something that pushes you to understand what is happening actually behind the scenes. Okay, so a lot of things would be similar, but I hope you got the idea, right? That ultimately, it's taking help from libuv, C++, and then it's going to the OS, and that's how the things are getting returned. So, any questions here? I don't want you guys to remember all of these things. I just want you to remember that this is a simple line. It feels simple, but behind the scenes, a lot of things are happening, right? And Node.js takes the help of libuv plus C++ library to get access to the computers or the OS internal features, and that's how it's able to access the computer level features, right? Like network card, file system, and so on. So, is it making sense, Narendran, Rajiv, Pooja? Any questions on this?
No, sir, no questions.
Okay, so was that helpful?
Yes.
Okay. Others, Pooja, Narendran. Yeah, yeah. So not only you, Narendran, I also have to revisit all these things again and again, right? And that's how we remember, because as developers, we are not going into this much depth for implementing small things, right? But it should be important. Okay. So let's do some basic exercises, and in Node.js, let's practice out. So we can create a simple HTTP server .js. And how do we create that? There are inbuilt modules. So we can say const HTTP to be require HTTP module. So this is again an inbuilt module, and it will give you the access to the create server method. So we can say const server to be HTTP create server, and in the callback we can say request and response. So this is something that you will use a lot as the industry standard. So we can say HTTP dot, and then what it will do is we can send back the response, and we can say write head. If you remember, we give this type of statuses, right? 200 for success. And if you want, you can mention the headers as well in the form of an object. So we can say content type to be, let's say, text slash plain, or if you want to set HTML, you can do that. And finally, we can say response dot end, and we can end with a message, let's say hello world. A very basic server, and we can just say server dot listen. So we want to listen to some port, so we can say 3000. And once it's done, right, so that's why you see this callback pattern used a lot. So we can say console.log, let's say server is running at HTTP localhost 3000, and that's it. So we have created our own server, very 2 3 lines of code. It's sending back the response. So this is the request where you send to the server, you process the request, but we are not processing the request now, we are just sending the response. So we can say node server.js, and you see that now the server is running on this URL, and we can go and you see the response. Okay, so this is how a basic server can be created, and you can see we are making a request, It's a GET request and we are getting 200 as the response. Now you should not do that, but if you give it 400, right, then it will give that response. So now it's understanding that okay, the response is successful, but you can give all those things, right? And you have to start the server again. So let's try, and you can see it's giving an error, and that's how you change the error code, right? But for this case, you should not do that. Each and every status code is meant for other reasons. And we have seen how to read a file, right? So we can go here and let's say how to write a file. So I can say fs dot write file, and you can put the file name, let's say output dot txt. So if the file is not there, it will create it, and we can say hello John as the content, and we can get a callback. There is no data to be returned here because it is writing, and we can just intimate that console.log file written. So let's try that out. Can say node index.js file written. You can see we have output.txt, and then it has the output. Okay, if you want to append, you can append the file. If you want to delete, you can delete the file, right? So we can say to delete a file, fs.unlink, and we can say output.txt. If there is any error, right, you can handle the error. Else we can say console.log deleted. Let's try it out. So you can see the output.txt got deleted, right? And if you want to handle the error, it's pretty simple. If there is any error, we can just say that we want to return console.log either the error, or you can say file not found depending on your use case. Okay. If you want to create folders, you can do that. You can create the folder, you can read the folder, contents, right? You can do that. You can try that out. It's pretty simple. We just have fs dot make directory, make dir, and for reading the folder, it's just read directory, that is read dir. So do that out, like practice that out as the homework. But one more important thing is that you can create your own modules. So for example, let's create app, or let's say uh, module, Here, let's say app.js and math.js. Okay. So we can go out. We have module. And first of all, what do we want is, let's say I have a math.js file and it's just a function that add two numbers. So it takes two numbers and it just adds it. Now I want to expose this file, right? I want to expose this method. So I can say module.export. See, now you can use latest React syntax as well, right? Import, export. But we are talking about how people use it earlier in the legacy code base, how it's written. So you can say module.exports, and that exports is an object where you can say I want to pass the add function. Now we can go to app.js and we can use it. So we can say import add, how we can say require, and we will be importing it from the path.math.js. Okay, so it not be import, it will be const. And now we can say console.log add, let's say 10 comma 20, and we can say node app.js, and we get the output. So this is how we can use the custom modules. Okay, similarly, if you go to index.js and let's say you want to work with OS module, so there are FS module, there is path module, there is OS module, there are a lot of inbuilt modules depending on your use case, right? So let's say if you want some OS level details, so we can say require OS, and we can say console.log os.platform that we are running on. You can get the other details like CPUs or what is the free memory. And if you want to get anything, right, you can just console.log os and you can see all the modules that are listed there. And you can also go to the internet and see the modules, right? So you don't have to remember that. You just need to know that you can access these things. So I can say node index.js and you can see that it's giving all these things, right? So it's better to put it this way. Yeah, so the platform is Darwin. These are the CPUs, and these are the free memory that I have. Similarly, if you want to access some timers, right, you can directly say set timeout. Let's say it will execute one time, and that's at interval repeating. And we basically give the time, right? So, okay. So we can execute this, repeating one time and repeating. So you can have access to this set timeout and all these things. Okay. So if you remember, guys, what was the global object in browser called? Do you guys remember?
This
Yeah,
window,
but this was pointing to window.
window, yeah.
Yeah. So in Node.js, we don't have the window object, right? We have another global object. So we have something called as process. Okay. So it's very important. So we have something called as process, and it is kind of you can say a global object in Node.js that gives info about the running Node.js, or you can say Node program. So it's important. So let's see if you want to get the PID, that is the current process ID. You can just say process. You can just log the whole object, right? You will get all the details. And platform, if you want the version, process version, or node version, start it out. Yeah, yeah, same thing. And a lot of things, guys, you must have seen, right? That people are solving, putting important things in environment variables, right? So we can write in the terminal, we can say set port to be, let's say, 5000, and we can say and node. Let's run this program. It runs, right? But where does that env file go? So it also goes in the process. So we can say console.log, we can say process.env. So you'll get all the environment variables here. So let's try to run that again. And you'll see this is all the environment variables, that is, it has inbuilt as well. And the one that we have put was, I think, port. It's not visible here. So I think I have to do it directly. Okay, we'll see like how to get the environment variables. Maybe we have to install a package, but I think this is fine. But you will get the environment variables here. Okay, now one more thing there are again a couple of more modules like crypto URL path module. Just go through that once. Right, but there is one more global object that is called as global. Okay, so you can just say global dot name Yeah, so we get the name right. But you should avoid global variables in real world known applications, but you should know that this also is the global. So there are two global objects here. One is global and one is process. Okay, there is also one more thing that is used widely is the directory name, because you have to work with that, right? And file name. So it's underscore underscore directory underscore underscore file name. So we can say console.log underscore underscore directory name, and underscore underscore file name. Let's run this, and you will see that it gives the directory details, it gives the up to the file path, right? And if you want to combine, you can combine them. Okay, so for example, we have this datadocs tst, right? And if you want to get the file path of data.txt, so it is this directory plus data.txt, right? So we can say const data.txt file path, and we can just combine them. So for that we have to import the path module. We can say const path to be require path module, and we can say path dot join. It'll join the directory name with the file name, that is data.txt, and let's say console.log data.txt file path, and we get that path here, and we can work with that file. Okay, so lot of things we can do right here. So any questions up till whatever we have covered? Pooja, Rajiv, Narendran. Guys, are you there? Am I audible? Okay. Okay, so guys, are you aware, right, that today's class will be going till 12? Are you guys aware of that? Okay, so let's do what? Let's take a 10-minute water break. So will you be there, Rajiv, or like, because we will be creating a short Node.js CLI project, right? So it's a very important learning if you can stay. Okay, so guys, let's take a 10-minute water break. I'm setting up a timer. And after that, let's come back. We'll start with the project. And if it is completed early, right, then we can leave early. So let's try to do that early, okay? So just setting up a timer. Let's meet after the break. Okay, guys, all are back. Shall we continue? Pooja, Narendra, Najif. Okay, so guys, let's start creating project, and that is our own CLI. So everyone knows what is a CLI, right? What are the node commands that we ran? What is CLI? Okay, so that is one thing. So let me share my screen and let's start building that. Before that, there is one more thing that I want you guys to see is yeah, I hope the screen is visible. So similarly, earlier we had callbacks, right? So now the libraries are updated, and you can also use new libraries, right? Like promises and all those things. And you can use latest syntax as well, right? So go through that once. So what we are trying to build is when we say node, so node is a CLI that we are running, right? So it is giving the command that okay, execute this file. So similarly, we will also create one. Okay. So what we can do is you can go here. You can say node CLI and okay. Yeah. So what I was telling guys that let's say we are here and we can say npm init dash y, so it will install the basic package.json, the basic things for us. So we have a package.json file that contains some dummy script, and it tells you about the project name, right? That is CLI, all these things. The main entry point of our file is index.js. If you want, you can change also, it's up to you. So this is how we'll start with the project. And just like we had this code, right, that I showed you here, similar to this, we have now promises library as well. So you can say const fs and you can say slash promises, and this makes the syntax more easier. So you can say fs dot read file, you can say data.txt, and then it will return a promise. So whatever the data that we have, you can just say console.log data. Both of them are asynchronous, but this can be used recently now, right? Because of the promises. Okay, so this is also fine, right? So this is about the asynchronous part. Let me put it there only. So you can compare it. Okay, so now what is the first part, guys? Is the first part is to register the commands. So let's say that we are creating a notes taking application, right? So whenever we are saying notes taking application, we should say something like note, and user should be able to add a note. For now, if we say something like this, it will do what? It will say that okay, this is not defined, right? So how do we register for that command? So we can go to our package.json, right? And here we can add a new bin, and this would be an object. And here we can register that it should be a command that is note, and it will execute in turn our dot slash index.js file that just says for now hello world. Okay, so we do something like this, and then we go here, we try node. That doesn't work because we have to tell the command line terminal to use what. Should it use Python to execute? Should it use Node.js to execute? It should use what, right? So there is a command for node system link, and that's how we register it, right? Hey guys, I'm audible. I think some network issue was there.
Yes, Sahil, you are audible now.
So did you guys see this package.json in this part?
Yes.
Okay, so we added this, right, and still it was not working because we have to tell the terminal which part it has to use to execute, right? So we have a system link command, and you can use that, I think. Or maybe not system, it's npm link, something like that. Okay, so we can use this part. We can go here and we can say npm link, and one more important thing that we need to add is we need to go to our index.file and we have to tell this hashbang. Okay, so what this hashbang means that go to the user, go to the bin folder, go to the environment and use this environment to execute this file. That is the node and that is what we want, right? So if you're writing in Python, some other language, and you want to do that. Okay, let us try now. Let's say node again. This is not working. And I think we can give this the name of node as well. Yeah, so this is also you need to do. And now we have created the link and we have given it the hashbang. So it should work fine. So we have registered successfully our node command. And that in turn calls index.js that checks the environment. So this is important to mention. And in turn, we get the output as hello world. So this part is clear.
Can you explain it once again? Hello?
Yeah.
Sir, can you explain it once again?
So you just have to do this setup, right? You install the package.json, just add the bin path, name of the app, the name of the package, and you just do npm link so it registers this particular package.json into your this system terminal. And here we are saying, okay, whenever this command is run, you have to just execute this file. So this file will be executed, and this file will be executed using node. That node stays there in this particular path in our system. Okay, so you're just telling it, okay, we want node. If you want Python, you can give a Python environment, you can give any environment, but for this case, we are using node, so we are doing that, right? It just tells which environment you want to use to execute this file. And now you can see the command is registered, right? Is it clear now?
Yes, yeah, fine.
So this is the step that we have to do every time you want to register a new command in the terminal. Okay. So let's say I put some arguments, right? Let's say node this is a new node. So we have to cover all of that. So you can say console.log process and it will come through this argv, right? So we can do something like this, and you can see that this arguments, whatever we are passing in the terminal, it is coming to the third part of the index, right? So you can pass any number of arguments, let's say test, so on, and you will see we get it like this. So we can say process rv and index 2, and that's where we get the argument. Okay. So we can do all of these things. Now parsing args and generating the commands, this will be a very cumbersome process, right? So there are inbuilt libraries to do that. So what we can do, we can go and use this yargs, right? So there is npm yargs and commander also, you can use commander as well, but we can use this to set up our commands. Okay. So let's install npm install yards and you can see how it is being used, right? So it will take the process.rv and it will uh, get it, right? So this is what we want to use. So let us copy. And let us test it's working. So basically it will process the arguments. It will give us that. But what do we want, guys? We want to register a new command. Okay. So we can remove this command or we can modify that. So we can say the command that we want to register is note, and we want a new note. So whenever users say note and new, so we want to put whatever the text is there, this new note, inside the file. Because we don't have the database here, so what we can do, guys, since we are not having the database, we can just create a file and we can say db.json that would contain an object. Inside that we will have the nodes array. Cool. So we can go to index.js now. We can register a new command, and this new command will take another argument, and that argument can be anything. So user can type any node, right? Learn music, learn JS, whatever. So it will be a placeholder kind of a thing. So in order for that placeholder, what we can do is we can just say a placeholder and we can call it as node, and the purpose of this is to just create a new node. So this will come under the help command. Create new node, and whatever the yards that we get out of it, we can say positional node, and we can describe this is the content of the node you want to create, and we can tell that we want the type of that to be a string, right? That is what user will type. So you want the type of that to be string, and whatever the args that we get, right? Whatever the args that we get. So we can say we do not want this. We can say const or for now, let's go and console.log this argv. Okay. So let's run this command. Note new, this is a new note. And before even that, let's say note, and it is saying, yeah. So one more important thing, guys, it is giving us an error that we are using the latest import modules now, right? That we do in React syntax. So now you can use that. But in order to use that, you have to go to your package.json and you have to mention there that the module that now you are using, right? Or you can say the type that you are using is now not CommonJS, it's module. So CommonJS is inbuilt where you are using require syntax. But as soon as we say module, this type of syntax should work. And you can see we get hello world. We do not want that. But when we say node dash help or dash dash help, you will see that it registered the command, because that is what this library is doing. It registered the command and it tells that it helps you create the new node. Is it clear up till here? It registered the command. That's it. Guys, this part makes sense? What this library is doing?
Yes.
Okay. So now what else we want is, let's say we want to give the option to add the tags also. So we can say tags. Okay, they should have the option to add the tags. And you can give it an alias that you can either use dash dash tags. So that's like dash dash help, right? You can say dash dash tags. Alias would be T. So either user can use T or tags. The type we want is a string. And it will be just the tags to add to the node. So now if we run that command again, node dash dash help, you get this, and you also get the options to add the new tags. Right? So this is how you can just copy and paste, and you can register all of the commands you want. Now how to get those tags? So we are already doing console.log argv. In order to run this, you have to type in, let's say, node new. This is a new node, and we can say dash t. We can say new node, etc. And I will press enter, and you will see now this particular callback has run, and you see all these t tags, right? All these headache here. Okay, so we want to extract the tags and we want to extract the node. So we can say const tags to be argv dot tags. If it's present, then we can say argv dot tags dot split, and you want to split with comma separated values. Otherwise, if it's not present, we'll just give it an empty array. Next, we can say const node, and you want to node. So that node is nothing but argv dot node, right? And what do we want to do here, guys? So we want to construct the node. So we can say const data or new node to be object. We want the tags. We want the content to be the node that is coming from the argument. And we also want the ID. So ID we can say date dot now. So we have constructed the data that we want to put it to the db.json file, right? So how do we do that? Guys, any inputs? How do we insert the data?
fs.write file.
Yeah, but before that we want to read that, right? Before that you want to read the file.
Yes.
So we can say import fs, and you can also import it now with the latest syntax. So we can say node, you want fs library from there, and we want to work with promises. So now what we can do is we can say const db to be, and now this would be async, guys, right? So we have to make this function async, and we can say await fs dot read file, and we want the path. So you can generate the path like this with the latest syntax. So we can say const db path, and that would be new URL, and we can say dot dot slash db.json, and we can say import dot meta dot url dot. So this whole will return the URL object, From there, we want the path name. You guys can console and check it out. Eventually, it will return you the DB part to this DB.json, right? So we can say read file. This is the path, and we will say the encoding that we want is UTF-8. So now we have the data, right? So let's test it out. So we can say console.log the DB. Let's run our command again, and you can see that it's giving some error. Node.js db.json. Okay, so this would be the same path, I think. Now let's try again.
Dot slash.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. Okay, so now you can see, guys, we get this DB. Inside this DB, it's basically a string that it is reading, right? So you can parse that, right? So we have already a method, so we can say uh, whatever we get, we can parse that. So we can say const parsed db to be json.parse the db, and this should give you an object. Okay, yeah, now we have an object that's pointing to the array, that is the nodes. So what we can do now, we can say db, it's an object. Inside that we can go to nodes, it's an array, and we can push our new node. And finally we have our db, so we can write to it. We can say await fs dot write file. We can put the db path, and we can again send the stringified data. So we can say db, we don't want any spacing, so null and two spaces, right? So you can check what it does, right? So we are saying we want two white space, and it will write to that file. And once it is done, we can go and we can just say uh, console.log node added, and we can say node new node dot id, and that would be what the user will see, right? Okay, cool. So let's test this out. We can say node new, this is a new node, and you can see the node has been added, and inside the db file you will see that great, we have our nodes and it is working fine. Is it clear, guys, everyone? Guys, this part is clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Narendra and Pooja. So if we do it like this, guys, then we know that okay, we are doing the job, but the code will become messier, right? So it's better that we create a proper folder structure. And now since this part is working, let me just put it in working.js that you can refer to. But ideally it should be a good proper structure, right? That we should create. So what we can do here, I can say I can create a commands file that will just have the commands. Then I will have a db.js file that will just have the db functions. Then we can have a nodes.js that will have the nodes related functions. And if we want any utils, that we can have a utils for that. Okay. Now what we saw, guys, we saw that this is the index.js, right? And we don't want all these things, all this headache here. So here we will just say import. What we can do is we can just import the command file. Thing will not have any source, so we can put that in the source, guys, right? All these things. Except the index, except the JSON, and put it here. And we can say dot slash source slash commands. And always remember, guys, that you put the .js extension. Okay. Now we will go here and we will register the commands. So it is pretty simple, right? But we would need the import as well. Okay. So let us register the commands. This is working fine. This is fine. This was for new node. This was for tags. Okay. Now what we want multiple commands. So I can copy that. I can paste it here. And we can remove this headache. You can go here. The command that now we want is, let's say, to get all the nodes. So when the user will say node all, it will just list all the nodes. So we can say all, and there is no placeholder or the argument that user will pass, and it will, you can say, get all nodes. And we don't want anything here because there is no argument, right? So this can be empty. And here we can write our logic to get all the nodes. So this is another command, right? What else we can do, guys? If you want to find a particular node, so we can say find, but finding will require you an ID, some sort of placeholder, right? So we can say filter. You can name it anything, but it is a placeholder. And you can say get matching nodes. And yes, this is taking an argument, so that we have to register. So for that, we would want this part, because we have now this filter, and it is basically the search keyword to filter nodes, and will be applied to node.content, something like that. It will be a string, and then you will write a logic to do that. Okay, this is fine. Then again we will have a command to remove, and again remove will take the ID, right? So there will be a argument, so you can say ID, and we can say remove a note by its ID. And now the argument is ID. This will be number, and the description is the ID of the node you want to remove. Now, lots of manual stuff, right? So I think this is fine. And last command that we can have is basically clean. This will not require any ID, nothing. It will clean all the nodes. So this should be empty. And it should basically remove all nodes. And now we have all these commands. And now we can test. We can just say node, or we can say node dash dash help. And you'll see we get all the commands registered here, right? And it should be by. Is it clear, guys, everyone, up till here? So we can register all the commands using this Yarks library. And will it take the argument or not? It's up to you to decide based on the functionality. This part is clear?
Yes, sir.
Sorry? Yes or no?
Sir, clear.
Okay, okay. Now what we can do is, so we have commands all in one place, and we also have DB, right? So you see that we were doing something like read file, write file, DB path, all those things, right? So we can have a separate file for that, and we can call it as db.js. Okay, and everything will be asynchronous, guys. So that is one thing that you have to remember. So we can have functions. We can have export. We are exporting. We will export. So you'll say const get the DB. It would be an async function. And similarly, we will have a function to save the DB. And then we can have a function, a common function to insert. Right? So what we can do is this will just get the DB. So we can say const DB to be await fs.read file, and we can pass the DB path and the character encoding. And if you remember, we were just parsing, and it will just parse, and it will send that DB object wherever this function calls. Simple, right? Save the DB, we'll write to the file, await write file, and it will send the data in the stringified manner. So it will take the DB from its parameter from the argument, and it will just return the DB as it is because it's already passed. And the insert one will get the DB. So await get DB, and we can say DB dot nodes dot push. So we will insert some new data, and the data we will be pushing here, and then we will save it to the DB. That is one hack of inserting, right? and we can return the data back. So a bunch of reusable functions that we have created and that we can use. So this part is also clear, guys. Is it making sense, the reusability part?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Similarly, we created our nodes.js file, right? Where we will create our functions, let's say export const new node. This will be an async function, and it will take the node and the tags, and we can create the data here, right? We can say tags, whatever we were doing earlier, content to be the node that is coming from the parameters, and id to be date.now, right? And first of all, let's have the placeholder functions. So we have for new node, we can have for get all nodes. We don't want any parameters in this case. We can have find nodes. Find nodes will take some filter, and then we can have remove node. So remember, remove node will take the ID, and then we have remove all nodes, and it would not take anything. So now it's become it is simple. What this new node will do, we will pass the node and tags. It will generate the data. And do we have any function created, guys, to insert the data? Yes, we have. So await insert from dot/db.js, and you will insert. It will take the data, and you will return the data here. So let's make this functionality works. And now we can go to our commands. And rather than all this headache, it's very simple now. We are just getting all the things that we want here, right, up till here. And we don't want to do all of these things here because that we are already doing in this function. So we can say const node to be await, and we can say new node. Make sure that you get it from nodes.js, and the new node will take the argv.node that is coming from the argument, and it will take the tags. Cool. Let's test this out, and now this will be node.id. Let's test this out. Let's go here, and I'll go delete this. Now we have nothing in the file, and it's giving some error. db.json source/db.json.
Sorry, it will be moved to the one folder up, I
Yeah.
think, the path.
So like this, right? Now let's try, and it works. And this is the output. Is it clear? So now we have extracted out. We have things very, very simple. We have made it cleaner so that these things are separated on its own layer. And this is how we add a new node. Is it clear, everyone? Rajiv, Narendran, Pooja, make sense? So now let's create one more, and one, two, you can do that for homework. So let's say that we want to get all the nodes. So the last one would be the logic part. Here we can say const nodes to be await get all nodes, and we can pass nothing here because we do not want nothing. And let's just say console.log nodes. So we are calling this get all nodes function, and let's go to that function. Let's implement that, and it's pretty simple. We just want to get the data from the db to be await get db. That's it, and we get the parse db, and we can just say return db dot nodes, and that's it. So we can say note all. It will list all the nodes that we have. So one thing that we could do is that in the commands we are saying console.log nodes. We can have another function in the utils. We can say export const list nodes. It will take the nodes. We can loop through it, nodes dot for each node. You can say console.log. We want to give some x/n, and then we can say id node.id. Tags, we can say node.tags.join as a comma separated values, and we can say nodes to be node.content. We are exporting it. Let's use that. So we can say list nodes utils.js, pass our nodes. Now I think it will be much more clear, right? We have the ID, we have the tags, we have the node section. Similarly, let's also do the last one. So we have remove all nodes. So we can say await remove all nodes, and we can say console.log all nodes removed, and we can go to the node section. And how would we implement this, guys? How to implement this part? We have these files, right? So one trick would be that we want to save to the DB, right? Wait, save to the DB, and we can pass in the DB as nodes and an empty array. So this would work. So now we can say node clean save DB is not defined. So we have to import that. Okay, so all nodes are removed. All nodes are removed. We can add a new node. Can add another node, right? And we can clean it. So is this part clear? All? Any questions, anyone? Can you guys take up this two thing as the homework? The remove ID and filter one. Okay. So, any questions, guys? I think we can wrap up now, but I hope that was like a good learning experience, because this is something that, see, creating server applications is fine, but you can also create CLIs. You can do a lot of things using Node.js, right? So, I know today we have covered a lot of things, but once you practice, it will all make sense, right? And this is how, once we create the reusability part, right, then things becomes simpler as well. Okay. So yeah, any questions, anyone on this? Okay, so let me push this thing. Give me a second. Okay, so guys, I've pushed the changes in this repository. You will get it where all the code is. So practice this out, and let me also give you the Excalibur link. So go through that. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So I've shared both the links, right? Okay, thanks, guys. Let's meet in the next class, and keep on practicing. I think tomorrow we don't have the class because I'm going out somewhere. So I'll give you some practice materials. Just go through that, and then we can start with Express and MongoDB, right? And we can start building the project as well. So it will be fun. We will learn new concepts along the way. But guys, keep joining the next few sessions, because that will be the base of the project, right, that we would be creating. So please like try to join those classes. Okay, bye everyone, take care, have a great week ahead.